All right, folks, welcome back to Mike Maurice's Mind Escape. We have episode number 78 today, Unidentified Season 1 review. We have our buddy Matt Tiller back. You can check out his YouTube channel at Tiller for Riller. You can also check out our website at mikeandmauricemindescape.com. And our Patreon page is patreon.com/Mike and Maurice. What's going on, Matt? How are you?
Oh man, I'm doing great. How have you guys been?
Good.
Wonderful.
That's great. Cool.
So what did you think about overall about Unidentified, the first season?
I was thoroughly impressed. Seriously. It I know for people that I collaborate with and have discussions with about this topic almost daily, a lot of the information was rehashed things we already knew. However, that I got to experience some of these things for the first time through the eyes of the public. It's almost like a story that your family might tell about you when you were a kid. You probably heard it all your life, but when you go to college and you can tell some of your roommates or whatever about this funny thing that happened, you get to relive it through their eyes and through their experiences again by seeing their smiley faces or their shock or bewilderment. And so I thought it was good that the general public got to come in and be a part of this conversation that we're all having now. There were some tidbits I didn't know about. And so those were surprises. I got to tune in every week and kind of see what's going to happen next. When they would give like the previews for the next episode at the end of the previous episode, I kind of saw where they were going. Like if anyone was paying attention to some of my posts on social media, I knew that they were going for Rendlesham Forest in episode 5. So I immediately went to my local library and checked out this book. Actually, I read it years ago. It's Encounter in Rendlesham Forest.
Oh yeah, that's a good story, baby.
Oh man, there's a lot of things that they did not address in episode 5 about this actual event. And
there was some new stuff too, right? I think not Peniston, but the other guy, Burroughs claimed that he had been taken in a craft or somehow something happened to him that wasn't mentioned before, because we actually on our other
downloaded information.
Yeah, our other channel, Ancient Secrets, we did a video, top 5 UFO sightings of all time. I think it was we hit it at number 3. And there was a lot of information out there already. Obviously, there's been short documentaries. There's an Ancient Aliens episode about it. There's show, there's different stuff, but there was actually some new information on there that I'd never heard before. Also, I would have liked to see them. Some guy came out recently, I think he's like a journalist in the UK, who claims that it was the British Air Force playing a prank on the American Air Force, because the Americans did something to them, and that was like a retaliation. I forget. I don't know. It was all in good jest, but apparently but it just, based on what I've heard from, Colonel Halt and his memo, and the different stuff, I felt like, I don't know. It just sounds like more disinformation put out there. So,
Here's something interesting. Apparently, whoever checked this library book out last played the lottery, because I just found this like empty this used lottery ticket stuffed in the book. Hey man, maybe I go online and recheck this thing, and you know what? Hey, if I win $150 million from this bunk lottery ticket, all 3 of us, we're gonna hit the town. Like, I'll rent a limo. We'll do something. We'll get tacos at Trump Tower or whatever. Maybe that might be the restaurant of choice for a lot of people. Whatever. I'm just joking. Anyways, back to encounter at Rendlesham Forest, not encounter with the local lottery. Binary code. They never talked about this binary code download stuff.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what
yes.
Peniston touched the craft, and he saw flashes of a binary code that downloaded, and he saw in his dreams and stuff. And I think that's what you're talking about. And then
Yeah.
years later, Linda Moulton Howe had a binary expert help him transcribe it, and it seemed to be a message from time travelers. I know that sounds crazy, but things like
Yeah.
eyes of your eyes, origin year 8100. There's a lot of stuff like that came out
Weren't
of
there
that
some
binary.
locations like
Yeah, the
longitude,
Great
latitude?
Pyramids,
Yeah.
Taishan Ku, all sorts of different places.
There was one of the pyramids in Mexico too, I think, in Tenochtitlan.
Yeah, Crockle, Belize as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And also, if I'm not mistaken, when he jotted all this stuff down, they tried to get a binary code expert to examine it, and it was just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. And it wasn't until about 15 years later, around the new millennium, the year 2000, that binary code was updated and improved. And after this new and improved binary code, they came and looked at it again. And most of the message is decipherable. But yeah, you're correct in that it says something like to ensure the
further planetary
further something like ensuring the survival of the species or something to that effect. But that does bring into question the whole issue of time travel. And I've talked about this before, and I don't know if I honestly don't remember if we've talked about it before or not. But Dr. Knuth, who used to work with NASA and has done some presentations for the Scientific Coalition for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Studies, and he's presented his findings and knowledge and theories for at other conferences and things as well. One most notably was in Germany. That was very recently. He says it is possible for us to attain interstellar travel, even traveling at like 1/33 the speed of light. That it's still possible, and there are certain conditions under which our astronauts or chrononauts would have to travel back and forth to locations. And of course, the whole concept is, yes, you can travel some odd thousand years into the future, but you can't make it home on time for dinner. But ching, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I mean, we're all familiar with how, according to the theory of special relativity, which is relativity in the absence of gravity, where time travel into the future can be attained relative to the traveler.
But isn't this, they always say, like, because the arrow of time, you can travel possibly hypothetically forward in time, but not backwards in time. And this situation would be backwards in time if it's something coming from, obviously the future back to scope us out or whatever. I mean, whenever we talk about this kind of stuff, I always think about like Jurassic Park, except maybe in the future, some advanced civilization sends their kids back to learn about the universe by just sending them here and like some sort of, like in Jurassic Park, they go through the tour and everything like that. I just think of it in that kind of a term where maybe
what
there's
not to do.
Yeah, not even that. Just like it's like live history. That's basically what it is. Like imagine taking a
Epcot,
spaceship
but in real life.
or a bubble and going back to like the Revolutionary War or even dinosaurs or whatever. Like that's kind of the way I think about it. I mean, it's crazy, and by no means do we have that technology, but that's what I think about when we talk about that kind of stuff.
I totally agree that I think your first type of time travel will be viewing only, and like a bubble, you say. It'll be tourism. It will be similar to the days in which you would be walking along the boardwalk by the beach, and you come up to a machine called a Nickelodeon. You put a nickel in, you put the cloth over your head, and some guy turns the pictures, and you watch the movies, moving pictures go in front of your face like a flip book, and you watch the movie on the Nickelodeon. So it might be such that, you know, you go to your IMAX 3D theater seating or stadium seating, you know, or whatever it is, movie in one theater, and you go to your next theater and you're like time travel back to the Revolutionary War, or even for some people who want a more like meaningful experience, it might be like, you know, view the crucifixion of Christ, you know, on screen. I mean, hey, Mel Gibson did it, made a lot of money. What if you had like the actual, here's the real Passion of Christ. So, at any rate, to talk about the logistics of that, there's different ways you can look at it. Okay, I know we talked about this at some point. There was some place in Rome where like it was a cathedral, and there was a basement constructed, and right where this basement and new floor were constructed, there used to be a Roman road. And then one day they saw like Roman troops marching or charging through the floor. So their feet were down in the basement running, and then like their tops were above the floor running,
right,
or marching. And so it looks like an impression or an indention in time, or like a repeat in time. So is it possible that two strands of time or two events in time somehow got so close together that they bled through, and that you're seeing an indention, almost like someone's handprint coming through the wall, you know, but maybe coming through the air?
Yeah, I mean, I think of that kind of stuff as more like sci research type stuff, where it's you know, possibly some sort of memory of trapped in somehow that area or whatever, you know, like
Yeah, that might be a definition
I
for
know,
ghosts or
yeah,
something.
well, Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance is kind of along those lines, where it's like stuff, you know, having a memory, you know, like somebody going into a music studio, like
Mhm.
Muscle Shoals, and
Yeah.
there's so much amazing music that's been created there that it's like seeps into the wall, you know. Like I think when you described it the first time, that's kind of what I thought of. I didn't think of it as much of um anything like UFO or
Mm-hmm.
extraterrestrial, or really more just dimensionally, or
Mm-hmm.
possibly something out of our spectrum of understanding, you know. So that's kind of what I
Well,
thought when.
this is the way it's related to the UFO phenomenon, is that the aircraft, the exotic aircraft, they fly and behave in such a way that when they, you know, like enter our reality or our dimension, or even just, you know, our airspace, they are manipulating time and gravity. So when they enter, it's almost like poking a hole through the space-time continuum, and it's like things get inverted and twisted around. So wherever you have these craft that are entering in certain spots, there's hot spots around the world. um, I think Lou Elizondo was working on a map or a database to like show where these hot spots occur. One, of course, is between Catalina Island in California and Guadalupe Island in Mexico. That was in episode 3, I believe it was. So they discussed that.
Is it
So
on the
wherever
Vial
you,
of Vertices at all?
um,
Like the Bermuda
uh,
Triangle, or there's
I
a
yeah,
don't
different
think it
yeah,
island?
is.
you
I think you're
know,
talking about that
maybe.
the zone in Mexico and Arizona.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. It's in
No, that's what Maurice is talking about. You're talking about Guadalupe, which is actually that I know it from. I knew it before they showed it on the show, because that's on
mhm,
Shark Week. That's one of the main islands where they investigate
cool.
great white sharks. They have like
Mm,
the largest great white sharks in the world. They're like 20 feet long. So,
Jaws.
um,
Now someone's going to say these Tic Tac UFOs are great white sharks. Oh, boy.
That'd be Sharknado. Let's do it.
Let's get them flying, baby. This shit's actually it's a documentary. We didn't know.
But actually, that episode where they're I think they're talking with the scientists that work, the marine biologists and stuff, and they're like, yeah, the lights we've seen could not have been any sort of bioluminescence or some sort of creature or anything along those lines. It's more along the lines of just something unidentified.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is until they crash to the ground, or until you see them really up close and you observe them operating in a mechanical way, like a nuts and bolts craft, or even I mean, doing things that that a shark can't do. Like a shark cannot fly at 445 miles an hour at 25,000 feet above sea level. I mean, like a shark can't do that. So what is it? And to say it's a shark or a bird or a flipping balloon is erroneous. It honestly makes someone sound foolish when they make those.
Well, it's a craft, right? I mean, it's either part of it's ours and it's part of some hidden military industrial complex craft program or whatever, or it's another country's, or the third, which I tend to lean towards based on what we know, something not of this world or possibly of this world. We just don't understand what's going on,
like crypto-terrestrial.
Or like, they always see them going into the ocean. There could be stuff under the ocean floor. There could be that what are they the big thing is the breakaway civilization. And I know Tom DeLonge's alluded to it, something about the ancient Greeks and something along those lines, but it's very cryptic. Like, what does that even mean? And he doesn't really
the crypto-terrestrial. Basically like the Atlanteans would have been crypto-terrestrial. That they were a elusive human civilization, but they just remain hidden. Like crypto is hidden, or unknown or elusive. So terrestrial meaning like of Earth, but they're just kind of keeping to themselves. Just real quick to end what we were saying about time travel into the past. There was a scientist that was talking about the source of life. It was some documentary about life and evolution and the source of life and the eternal nature of the universe. I don't remember the scientist's name, but he said that he believes that the pattern of life can be seen in the way energy is dispersed, and he thinks that it can relate somehow to the Big Bang or what's called the hot Big Bang or something. I'll get into that another day. But a tree with no leaves.
The cosmic microwave background. Yeah, we've talked about that kind of stuff before.
Yeah. Well, the hot Big Bang is a little bit different, but anyways, basically with a tree, you've got the trunk and then branches. A lightning bolt, you've got the primary root of the trunk of the bolt, and then it branches out. So one day I started thinking, all right, let's picture the universe as like a giant tree. Okay. So what do we see in a tree trunk as far as like time is concerned? You can cut the tree down. You can look down at the trunk. You can count the rings on the tree, and you can tell about the environment at that time based on those rings. All of the rings make up the same tree. Every ring tells you a little bit more of a story about the tree at that time. Right. You can see periods of like massive growth or small growth. You can see if there was drought, maybe if there was even if there were toxins or something in the atmosphere. And you can judge how old the tree is by its rings and by things that were happening. So what if we're able to, if the universe is like the rings on a tree and we find ourselves in one ring pattern, if we were able to skip over to a different ring backwards, closer to the root, right? that could explain why sometimes when people report to see a ghost or an apparition of someone who's recently deceased, they sometimes appear like in full color. But then it seems like the further back you go into the past, you're seeing like, a grayish apparition. You're seeing like someone looks like they're wearing a sheet. Someone that's only like half appears. Sometimes it's just a dude's arm. Like, what's that all about? The ghost of an arm is it's like Thing from the Addams Family. His ghost, I don't know. Yeah,
hand running around, man.
Yeah.
Thing.
I mean, that's an interesting way to look at it. I've seen the memes out there where it shows like a super far away shot of the universe, and it looks like a neuron or like brain connect, like synapses.
Yeah,
and that's actually that's kind of what you're describing a little bit.
I mean, that fits with that guy's as above, so below, like when you was talking about the molecules of the DMT.
Yeah, I mean, we all think about it. Are we just neurons or cells in some other
giant thumbnail?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But so let's go through this real quick. So season 1, the first episode and second episode were kind of just like them interviewing, for David Fravor, and I forget the younger guy's name that they were interviewing. But then it just does a little bit of background on Tom DeLonge, To the Stars Academy. It actually, a lot of it centers around Luis Elizondo. And cool. He got a lot of flack. There was a lot of people putting stuff out there saying that he was never part of any, or he wasn't the head of ATIP and any of that stuff. So, I mean, we can talk about that too. But so there's a lot of stuff swirling out there. And then you've got Chris Mellon. You got all these guys. I don't remember seeing, was Hal Puthoff at all? I don't remember seeing him at all.
Yeah. I don't think he I think he was more of an extra. I don't think he had a speaking role.
Right.
I did see him. I saw him on camera, and they said who he was, but Hal, from what I gather, usually just kind of keeps to himself, or he's not really outspoken. And I respect his privacy. I'm not.
He's in that Third Eye Spies documentary about Russell Targ.
Yeah,
and remote viewing and stuff. But I didn't really see much. I was just curious because there's a lot of talk, especially I know some of Tom DeLonge's interviews and even the book God's Man War about consciousness being at the forefront of this whole thing and how and how it's connected. So since Hal Puthoff was part of the SRI remote viewing program, and he's all intertwined with that, I was just expecting to see more of that. Maybe that's season 2, or maybe that's further down the line. I don't know, but maybe this was just a initial, let's just get people acclimated to this idea, and then we'll start getting into the details.
From what I understand, and this is just my own intuition, it seems to me that season 2 is a very probable possibility, and it would surprise me greatly if there were not a season 2. I'm almost certain of it. I mean, and again, that's my personal opinion. But yeah, there's a lot to come. This is what I would encourage people to do. There's a ton of information that's already out there. It's just people don't want to take the time to listen. And really, that's what it boils down to. I was watching a YouTube video today about a guy who was debunking Bob Lazar's interview with Joe Rogan. And I could tell real quick, he didn't even listen to the entire interview, because he was saying things that even in the interview, like the documentary aside, even in the interview, some of these things were already addressed. And I'm thinking, like, bro, you just go. Like I could tell, maybe he was daydreaming or something, or he lost his attention. Whenever that happens to me, I stop and I go
No,
back.
those debunkers never really
Yeah,
follow. They
yeah.
don't. Look. If you want to put skeptical stuff out there, that's fine. But
Mhm.
watch the whole thing, read the whole book,
Yeah.
watch the whole series, do your homework, and then
Mhm.
okay, this is BS. I think I know what you're talking about. I'm not even going to mention the
Yeah,
guy's
yeah.
name because I didn't think he did a
Yeah,
good
no, he
job.
seems
But
like a nice guy, but and he, I mean, he wasn't being like disrespectful or anything, and he was saying things like, my opinion and blah blah blah. But it was the things he was saying were pretty easily refuted. At any rate, it's a lot of the information is already out there. Tom DeLonge did an amazing interview with Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, and right in the middle of the interview, um, maybe at the 1 hour 20-minute mark, I think it is when Tom really starts talking about the whole consciousness aspect. And he said that he was going to meet with someone, and obviously the meeting has already happened because this interview's a little old. But he was going to ask the guy a question about consciousness and Atlantis and things. And his question was basically, back in the times of ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, were we able to fend for ourselves more and like fight these push these evil entities or whatever they may be, like were we able to push back the negativity more because human consciousness was elevated so much more? And maybe that's a problem now, and why. And again, I'm postulating this is me asking this question. Would that be why people talk about like the abduction phenomenon? I mean, you really didn't hear about that until like Betty and Barney Hill around that time, like the 1960s and stuff. It just grew and grew and grew. We never saw that before. But
yeah,
then
John
again,
Mack did a lot of research on that too. He was
well,
at
yeah,
Harvard. He was the head
yeah,
of the Harvard
mhm.
psychology department, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct. He and Bud Hopkins as well. We're doing a lot of well, yeah, okay, another time. But back to the things Tom was saying, it's like of the entities that could potentially want to be mean, it's a little easier to keep them away when we're happy, when we're laughing, when there's something about the joy and happiness of the human spirit that pushes the negativity back or pushes the bad entities back. Or I don't want to say too much because number one, I don't want to misquote. Number two, I don't want to mislead. Number three, I don't want to give a false lead. But
Yeah.
I would just recommend for anyone, go listen to the Faded Black interview in its entirety. If you find your attention has faded, back it up 10 seconds or a minute and a half. Just Tom shares so much good information. And you will be able to see very clearly where all of this is going. And it's good. It really is good. In order to get to the good, we have to face the fact that there is some bad part on humanity. For you could say it's top down, it's bad leadership down to the people. You could say it's some people that are just trying to make a buck. You could say some people are, have a lucrative business of misinformation and disinformation, or whatever you want to say. Regardless, we've got to separate fact from fiction, truth from reality, and just have a big, massive global conversation about like what are we going to do?
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do?
Yeah, because the first 2 episodes, like I said, the background, those were just background,
Yeah.
uh, information and stuff that most people that follow this already know, but it would have been new to people just tuning in, so that's why it's good. So,
Mhm.
episode 1, episode 2, and then you get to episode 3, and it's the, Catalina Island and Guadalupe and the weird stuff that people have seen, in that area off the coast of California, and the lights and everything by the water. And then you get to episode 4, 5, and 6, and you start to realize they shift from just information to, I don't even want to say there's an agenda, or it is an agenda, but just that it seems like it's more threat based than, and there was a lot of people talking about that online on Twitter and stuff, like, hey, are these things threats? Because I know there's different takes. I think Stephen Greer doesn't think that they're threats. He thinks that we're threats and we're causing them to be a threat by our own actions, so
Maybe so.
right.
And whatever it may be, if it was provoked by us, or if it's just a huge interplanetary misunderstanding, like culture shock on both parts, we don't understand them, they don't understand us. We've got to figure something out. Someone was saying that the Italian researcher that they had that was talking about the laser ray being shot at the helicopter and things like that.
Right.
That this man has not been able to back up his claims. I don't know. I wasn't part of the meeting. I wasn't there. I don't know how he backed up his claims or not. I do know that they, just based on what I saw on the TV series, Lou and Tom were given a flash drive with like all of these cases going back like 70 years or so of documented cases. The format of the documentation, resembles similar types of reports and I've seen before. A lot of us have, and it looks legit. I mean, I'm just going from what I see on screen. It looks legit. I have no reason to doubt the man. I think what Stephen Greer says also makes a lot of sense. Perhaps we're the one that fired the first shot or threw the first rock. Maybe so.
It's not only that, right? It's like we're quarantined, and there's actually some esoteric and ancient texts that kind of talk about similar things, that even religious themed things, that we are quarantined here because we're not like pure, like we have some sort of animalistic nature. If you look at evolution and how chimpanzees and the primates we can observe today, a lot of them are pretty vicious towards each other, and that's our past, or at least part of our past, or however you want to look at it. So in that essence, like, we do have this like warring tribal mentality that maybe, let's say these are extraterrestrials, maybe that doesn't exist anywhere else, or maybe that's specific to us. And the way, how we talked about Bob Lazar and Element 115, and how, that could have been normal there, like a stabilized Element 115 here. It might be the same way in terms of like our nature, so that's a possibility. But I also think too, we've done some crazy, what is it, Operation is it Starfish Prime or something, where we tried to shoot nuclear weapons up in space or at the moon or something like that. And I don't know, I'd have to look it up, but yeah, so we're doing also, like, that's the other thing about us is human beings, is we do a lot of tests and stuff that, even if it's not good, or we have a feeling it might be harmful in some sort of way, we still have this like curiosity or some sort of drive to do these things, so I don't know, I just think that that's kind of embedded in who we are. Maybe we need to change, maybe you look at what is the scale, well, go ahead, Maurice.
Starfish Prime is the name of it.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah,
not Ultimate Prime, but Starfish.
What does
Prime.
it say? What does it say on there?
It was a 1962 high altitude nuclear test conducted by the United States. Let me. Launched from Johnston Island, or Johnson.
Oh. I would love to have Operation Optimus Prime. That would be
Yeah.
Yeah.
We might be dealing with that. We just don't
We
know.
do. It's a Michael Bay movie, man. Come on.
And Optimus's Prime's heart is Element 115.
Wow.
Oh, get out his flip stick and let's get swinging.
No, but so that's what I think about it. I mean, look, we're jumping, around right now, and we're jumping ahead for sure. I mean, I think that's a good thing that that Unidentified, the show, that's what I thought they did a good job of just introducing basic information and putting it out there, and letting people see it, and it wasn't just jumping to the most advanced concepts, because we've talked about this. You're talking about with your friends and your family, and I've talked about it with friends and family, and some people are interested in it, some people aren't. The people that are becoming interested in it, you can't just tell them the most advanced shit right away. It's not gonna grasp, or it's not gonna latch on. You need to
spaceship made out of Jello. You wanna hear about
right. So that's kind of the way I look at it, is they did a good job of just introducing it. And then towards the end, though, they made it seem like a perceived or possible threat. And we've talked about that, I think, the last time you were on. These things could be a threat, or they couldn't. Or maybe they are like us, and some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them want to help, some of them want to hurt. Who are we to say, like.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's whoever they are, whoever else might be out there, are probably just as varied as we are. Most human beings around the world are regular, hardworking folks, just like us. There are some who are just freaking awesome. I mean, they're the ones everyone looks up to. And there are some who are just bad for whatever reason. They have decided they're no good at being good, so they'll be good at being bad, and they just want to be bad. They want to hurt, plunder, and pillage, or whatever it may be. So it's very probable that extraterrestrial life outside of our planet would be the same way. I mean, you're going to have those who want to enlighten, those who want to help. You've got those who are probably complacent and neutral and say, our planet officially will not waste our time trying to improve the quality of life on Earth, because they don't even know. They think they're alone. Ha, 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 ha.
Right.
There's probably someone to, blow us up and take us over and use our resources. I mean, who knows? But for some reason, it hasn't happened yet.
I think that would have already happened, especially now. Look at what we're finding out about these asteroids and meteorites, and how much there's one that has more gold on one meteorite than we have on our entire planet. So it's like if they were going to mine or need something like that, or like the Zacharias Sitchin, he obviously went a little crazy on the
interpretation,
the deciphering. But but if you want to say that, well, why would they do that when you can do that other places and not have any pushback whatsoever?
Exactly. This is my take on all of this. Basically, like if we're gonna hit the fast forward on the Netflix here, and just go all the way to the very last minute of the last episode of season 1,000,000. This is my honest theory. I think that time repeats itself, and it's possible to travel backwards in time to what's more like a ripple in time, or an after effect of time. And it's possible to, like, the further out a ripple gets, the wider the waves become, to where it's almost nothing. But I think it's even possible.
I mean, like gravitational waves, or?
Yeah, I don't even know. Pardon me.
No,
I think the nature of the universe itself, where we see lots of empty space, I think it might be more like a consistency of liquid, not meaning that if you or I, travel outside our solar system, we're going to go swimming. That's not what I mean. I just mean I think that all of the atoms, the subatomic particles, the molecules, whatever makes up the universe, is held together somehow through waves or wave patterns or interference patterns. And that goes back to something called the double slit experiment, but I can get into that a different time.
No, we know. We're
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Okay, yeah. But I mean, how it relates to the nature of time in the universe is a little bit different. But
True.
I think that obviously we're not alone in the universe. I think that the signs have been there for a long time, but neither us nor anyone else is able to fully communicate. I think that some people on Earth, at least, are privy to the fact that that is the case, but even they are not well equipped to deal with it. And so they just kind of push it aside and don't pay it much attention. I I also think that someone, you could call it divine, you can say it's crypto terrestrial, something has been defending our planet and keeping us safe for a long time. I don't know how long. I think that just as how we find a remote tribe way out in the middle of the rainforest and want to, send them Bibles or supplies, clothes, or food rations, that there are probably um, human type of species that want to do the same with us and have. I think there are others that have learned the same lessons we have, which now, these days, if we find a remote tribe in the rainforest, we leave them alone because history has shown us that when we do make contact, they usually get our diseases and something bad happens.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Columbus.
yeah, definitely. And so I think that might be where we're getting the impression that we're being quarantined. It might not necessarily be. It might be for our benefit that if we're being quarantined, it might not be a quarantine. We might be purposefully left alone for a while for our safety, for our benefit. I don't know.
Do you think it's like the Kardashev scale where it's like we're not even to a type 1 civilization? So there's type 1 civilization that use its own planet or star as a power source. Type
Mhm.
2 would be you using your own solar system or whatever, and type 3 would be like the galaxy or whatever. So,
I
do you
think
think it's
that
we're not even at the point yet where we're at the most base level, or
That's interesting.
I think that the planet rating scale is only applicable to Earth. That's it. It's until we have other planets to compare ourselves to, we don't know. It's a good concept. Michio Kaku said that the internet is like a level 1 communication device. It's like a global phone. I mean, you can call anybody anywhere, communicate with anybody anywhere through the internet, which is great. But that's barely at level 1.
I
But
say it's like a modern day Akashic record because it's got
mhm,
the history and the information of everything in there, good
yeah,
and bad and
definitely,
indifferent, right, wrong, everything.
for real. That is true. Uh, I just I think that we're going to be surprised. Again, if we're pushing fast forward on the going to the very very last minute of season 1 million, um, we're going to go around and we're going to find species that are less developed than we are. We're going to find humanoid and non-human looking species that are more developed, equally developed, less developed. They won't have the same things that we have. They might have similar versions. They may eat food, or they might breathe food and eat air. I have no idea. I believe some of them will not be able to come to our planet because oxygen will be poisonous to them, but then they will breathe methane. They might look like us very, very similarly. They might have similar pigmentation to our races and ethnicities here on Earth, but it's methane based and not oxygen based. How is that possible? I have no idea. It's a thought experiment. Um, I also think that we're going to, that, and these are all my ideas, just thinking in the future. I mean, all of these
Right.
ideas, they might be dated, and if anyone wants to say I'm a moron,
Leave a
allow me to
comment
say it.
below.
This what I yeah, it's the least worst thing anyone could say to me.
Who gives a shit? This is all
Yeah.
speculative anyways. Until
You have the balls to
Yeah,
speculate,
yeah,
half
I
the
don't.
people don't
yeah,
even do
man.
that.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean,
You're always gonna get trolls.
all-
Those people, obviously,
yeah,
their lives are miserable. I could care
fault
less
me,
about troll.
fault me for having an imagination. Okay, well then, yeah, if we had no imaginations, then where would Christopher Nolan be, right? So
Right.
yeah. Anyways, I think we're going to find beings of light, or that they appear to be just light to us, maybe like a band of light or a body of light somehow. I think we'll find entities that appear to us like angels, others that we might not be able to see because their color spectrum doesn't reflect our light or absorb our light in the way that our eyes can see. Perhaps we will encounter a civilization that we can see, but we can't hear because their voices are too low or too high, and we'll have to devise some sort of way to communicate. How is that possible? Not exactly sure, but I do remember that in episode 6, the Italian researchers and officials said that they found a radio frequency that they could send out that seemed to attract the aircrafts to them. That is step one in communicating. If we can teach dolphins how to communicate with us, if we can teach Coco the gorilla sign language, they can teach us crop circles. Come on, man. Let's do something. I mean, if
Yeah.
we could send the
What
radio
do you think about that? You think I mean, because they've shown that just two guys, a wooden plank, and some rope can make some
Right.
pretty intricate stuff. I'm not saying that all of them are, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, what do you think about that? Do you think there are crop circles that have no, like, have they ever done any studies where they've collected like radiation or something to prove that it was not done by two dudes in a plank and some rope?
Yeah, I actually watched a video today. There was a guy on Vice, the YouTube channel, that was
Mhm.
talking all about it. And at first I was like, okay, here comes the myth buster. But no, this guy has some pretty cool stories to tell. He said that he has seen these unexplained like orbs of light around some of the crop circles after they've appeared. I've seen studies in which they've gone in after some appeared and like the crops are like bent all the way down. There's like the Geiger counter or Geiger counter, the
Right.
radiation stuff's like going off the wall or going up. It's elevated. But then there's other stories like that whole area. They have like plane tours and things like that. It was broad daylight, and this tour guide was driving, flying. He wasn't driving in the sky. He was flying over this area, and they just did a loop, and came back. And within about like 3 minutes time of just doing this and coming back, there was this huge crop circle that had just appeared. And he said, "There's no way that any human being in broad daylight, even a big team, I mean, you would see them like driving away in their trucks somewhere, you know, there's
Mhm.
no way they could have done that in 3 minutes. And with them looking, I mean, any minute they could have looked back and been like, oh, look at all that team of people with planks and boards and trucks, you know."
Yeah. Could be some sort
So,
of technology that, you know, we invented too. That,
I,
I always wonder too, because like, what's the benefit of us pretending like our government or the military industrial complex? Like, what's the benefit? I always think about this. What would be the benefit of them doing that? I think one would be to protect technology that they've invented or somehow came across or whatever. Two, would be that we're always in the lead. We're always advanced because if you look at what happened with the Germans in World War II, we were close to being leapfrogged and possibly not even being here right now. Like if we didn't come up, if Oppenheimer didn't, develop the atomic bomb, and we didn't drop it, there's a good chance that it could be like that show, Man in the High Castle, right now.
Yeah. You mean what's the advantage for the government doing crop circles, or what's the
Oh,
advantage
just all of it. Like why? Like
denying it.
because I've even heard there's been speculation like with the cattle mutilations that's us doing that, or the covert ops doing it for disinformation or to creep people out, or like what would be the benefit of creeping people out? And I think it's to not to creep us out, but to creep everybody out. Because if we believe it, other countries are going to believe it. If other countries believe it, they're going to stay at bay. They're not going to try any bullshit because they know we're going to fuck shit up.
I think regarding the crop circles, that, and this is my best guess, who knows, man. But it seems to me that it might be something. Okay, look, going back to Rendlesham Forest, that this aircraft appears or lands, whatever. It's from 8100. Is doing these time travel operations to ensure the survival of the species.
Right.
And if that is a future mission to go back in time to send drones or whatever to collect information and take it back to the future to make sure that the time strand that we're on stays pure, and it's not that we're not going to destroy ourselves or whatever, to ensure our survival, they might use crop circles as certain markers, much like how law enforcement, like undercover busts and things like that, have something called color of the day, where it's like if you're going to go in for a bust and there's people there that say like, no, we're part of this too. We're cops too. We're in on this. And then you say, okay, what's the color of the day? And if they, yellow or whatever, then
Right.
you know, right? So it could be a way of them seeing this pattern, and in this pattern there's some information to gather, or it could be that the pattern is laced with radiation markers to where we're just with our Geiger counters are sensing radiation. Maybe with the right instrumentation you could see into this pattern and read a three-dimensional message, maybe even layered or like a cube or something, that tells you this is the day, this is the time strand, this is what's going on, this is the weather, this is your mission, go find this information or do this or whatever.
I've seen the debunkers say that it's like possibly like ball lightning, and it creates some sort of geometric pattern. But if you look at some of the crop circles, there's no way that that's ball lightning. Like if it was just a big circle or a couple circles or whatever, I could see maybe. But some of that stuff's so intricate. It's like somebody's making it, whether it's extraterrestrial or terrestrial. I guess.
I mean, I'm sure it's a mixture of both. Just like everything, there's a truth that lies in between, and it's hard to decipher it. That's all.
All right.
So. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, so to recap here, we've got episode 1 and 2 are background stories with pilot testimonies from the USS Nimitz, the Tic Tac video, the Go Fast, all that stuff. Episode 3 is Guadalupe Island and Catalina Island and the sightings and the weird stuff that's happening around there.
That's also the introduction of Sean Cahill. Super cool guy. So keep looking out for him. All right.
And then then 4 is Rendlesham Forest. And 5 and 6 begin to unfold this notion that maybe not all is well and good, and maybe that there are some things going on. I mean, it seemed like, though, from that this episode 6 was where the Italians were briefing us on their experiences over Sicily. I think it was the early 2000s or 2000s.
2004 or 2006.
So and that was obviously, that's the 2004 thing's interesting because that's when the Nimitz and all that stuff. So obviously there's a timeline going on there. But the Italians were briefing us saying that these things shot some sort of beam at one of their helicopters that didn't crash it or anything. It just knocked it off its thing and it had to land. So my thought on that is that's not necessarily evil. Like if you were evil, you'd blow the thing up or shoot it down or whatever. So maybe, I don't know. It's one of those interesting things to think about. So And that's why I go back and forth. Is it extraterrestrial? Is it terrestrial? Because it might be us. If it's us, yeah, we're not going to start a war with anybody. We might just want to test this technology out, not really hurt anybody, or
Well, I have a friend who, his dad was in the Air Force, and he and his little brother pretty much grew up in Bolivia. And he said one day they were walking home, and they were just ganged up on by a lot of the little boys in their neighborhood with water balloons. And they were all like, for some reason, everyone was having these water balloon fights. It might have been like a holiday or something.
right.
So he and his brother went home soaking wet, but then they had a wagon. So they got their wagon and loaded it up with water balloons.
Nice.
And went back into the neighborhood and just boom, boom, boom. Or just
right.
And then when they got done with that, they went back and refilled their wagon again and came back. And then the Bolivian kids didn't want to fight with them anymore. Maybe that's the situation. Maybe we, in throwing the Italian missiles and they're throwing them back or whatever it is, maybe it was that was the case. If we have our EMP technology and we're trying to get better with it, I know that beamed energy propulsion is a thing. Quantum entanglement and being able to weaponize it or use it as a weapon is a thing going on now. It could have been back then too. It could have been experimental. We could have been freaked out because they invaded our airspace, or that's the way we see it. Just how when I step on an ant hill in my own yard, I invade the ants, ground space, and they want to bite my feet. So if we fire at them, maybe that was their way of firing back at us. Mm-hmm. Another thing I've thought about, some of the missing 411 experiences, you find like a human being with like just their legs or their bones sticking out or something, like some really macabre things. But then I think about, how do we treat insects? I just like, and then there's this mutilated insect corpse on my desk, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I just like totally destroyed this insect's life. Half his body is smashed. Mm-hmm. Sometimes with a fly swatter, I remember one time like I hit a fly in such a way that it split in half. So like the fly's butt just like was on the ground. I don't know where the rest of the fly went. But what if in the national parks, what if we get a little too close to their territory, and that's essentially what's happening is, an unseen, more powerful entity is just,
right.
I don't know. It's just something to think about. I don't know, man. There's so many unanswered questions. It's a very exciting time, I think, in which we're living. But it's also, in my opinion, it's a time in which we need to purposefully not back down in fear. We need to actually do the opposite, and we need to get happy. We need to hug each other, love each other, shake each other's hands, high five, spend time with our friends and family. We, sing, laugh, joke. Don't forget what it means to be human, because we're losing that. And I think that's our greatest asset, seriously, is coming together as human beings, not dividing ourselves, which is it's always so easy to do. It's so easy to find differences and separate into groups because of our differences. At the end of the day, we all need food, we need air, and we all need friends.
But that is part of us too.
Well said,
though.
my friend. Well said.
I will say this. I agree with what you just said wholeheartedly. But like I said in the beginning, when we were talking about our origins and evolution, we are part animal still too. So what you're saying is, like the more modern aspect of our, like the civilization and the, the concepts and the philosophy and, love everyone and let's help everyone out. And like, that's amazing. But all of us have this like primal animal within us too. That's why you see people fighting on Facebook and Twitter all day. That's why you see people fighting around the world. That's why, so I agree with you. We should definitely shoot for that, and we should ultimately be searching for the truth, whether it's us, a different country, or extraterrestrial. It shouldn't matter. There's something going on, and we need to figure it out. I believe it's something not of this world or connected to that somehow. But I am open to being wrong, as we, always say. I mean, I think that's where knowledge goes to die, is when people start to pretend to have all the answers, or I know this, I know that, this is what I believe, wholeheartedly kind of stuff. So, or blind faith, but I appreciate you coming on. I know you got a little bit of a cough and a cold, and
yeah. I was traveling around.
Oh
Europe.
yeah. I'm sorry. Let's get to that before we get off. No. Because you saw some cool stuff. You were traveling in Europe, and you got to see some of the art, especially with some of the UFO stuff and some of the arts.
Definitely, it was an absolutely amazing experience. It was with a group of other like-minded people, and so our last interview that we did, I was actually in a hotel room in Madrid, Spain, which is pretty interesting. I mean, we tried to do it at JFK, it just didn't work out.
Yeah, that was not. It was better that we waited. I thought it was a better episode. So
it was an odd coincidence, though, that we were supposed to do this this big trip over spring break, so that would have been like in like April, right?
Mm-hmm.
Between March and April, and instead it got pushed back to June, July, and that it just worked out that the season was coming to an end, and episodes 5 and 6 aired. And when episode 6 aired, I was actually like in Rome, kind of where it all takes place. And some of the buildings it was a really cool coincidence. Some of the buildings that they had in episode 6, like I was actually at those places about like 24 hours later. And it was pure coincidence, because I didn't get to watch episode 6 until July the 7th. Later that night, just because I didn't have really good Wi-Fi and stuff like that. But anyways, it was so cool. It was surreal, really, to think, they were in these places. Lou and Tom walked like these same streets. We're at such like a pivotal time in all of like the phenomenon and the discussions and where we're going to go next, and people coming on board and just at least acknowledging that the phenomenon is real. And then it's like, here I am at a pure coincidence. So anyways, going back to some of the things I saw, the coolest thing I saw was actually what I did for my very, very first live Twitter broadcast. And that was a painting it's Madonna and the child with the infant St. John the Baptist. Mm-hmm. But its nickname is Madonna of the UFO, or Our Lady of the UFO. And it's at the Renaissance Museum in Florence, Italy, on the second floor, right past the Hall of Saturn, which is a part of the Hall of Hercules. So you go up these stairs, you go around, you go through like this terrace, and you go and you take a left, and there's like this nice little room, and there's just painting hanging on the wall. And it's got, Mary, and she's holding Jesus, and then there's like John the Baptist. And then for some reason, like behind her, totally random, there's this dude like looking up in the sky, and there's like a friggin' UFO like in the sky. I mean, you could probably Google Madonna of the UFO and find a real good image for it. But if you I got as close up as I could from where I was allowed to go. But if you find professional photographs, I mean, people say like, oh, it's a cloud. This was the Renaissance, man. They were painting some of the most amazing artwork ever. You think they can paint a cloud? That's it. Yeah, that's it, right? Like,
I'm looking at it too. That's no cloud, bro. That's a flat Earth.
Yeah.
Don't even say that, bro, because they're gonna demonetize just for mentioning it. So,
oh Jesus,
it's a porcupine. sign. Yeah, I have no idea.
No, there's but yeah, that obviously isn't like a cloud. It looks like a
Mhm.
UFO. I mean, I don't know.
Totally.
There's no, you know. And there's the
There's
guy
a
right there underneath, like looking up, or
Yeah, like
you
it's
know.
something out of the ordinary. It's not like a normal
yeah.
cloud. Why would he be looking at a cloud? It's
So then like there's another one. I can't remember the name, but it's Jesus and some other saintly folks. So they're coming in on these clouds, but they're like disc-shaped clouds, and they're like a
Yeah,
fleet. They're all coming like that. So that painting is at a church called Santa Maria Maggiore, and that was in Florence too. So I went to go find it. Wrong church. Apparently, Santa Maria Maggiore is as common as Notre Dame is in Paris. Like the name just circulates. It's almost like saying First Baptist in the Bible Belt, right? So, anyways, yeah, or Saint Mary's in the Catholic Church at all.
well, there's this one. I don't know where this one's located, but this is also another one.
that's sweet.
Yeah, I've seen that one's really cool. Yeah,
There's
that's
a lot of stuff with depictions of crafts in the sky. For
there
sure.
are, and see, the one with like the fleet coming in is actually in Santa Maria Maggiore in Rome, and so I didn't have time to see that one. It was going to be like a 30-minute walk to get there, or a 16-minute cab ride at the tune of like $35 just to get there through Uber. I was like, no, I'm sorry, I cannot afford $70 cab ride.
Yeah.
Anyways, I started looking around. The point of the story is like I started looking for anything and everything in these like religious depictions, and I noticed that even if it wasn't like, oh my gosh, it's a UFO, it's like everything seems to go up. Everything comes from the sky. There's always a miraculous occurrence that's light from the sky. Everything.
Right.
Like anytime a saint appears, it's light from the sky. And so, why are these divine occurrences always accompanied with disc-shaped clouds that illuminate light, and they come from the sky? It's just very interesting. So,
Yeah, I mean, I would say, because even if you think like, oh, like in the evolution of thinking and philosophy and theology, that yeah, you'd think of God as up in the sky, or how he's depicted as like, a Zeus-looking character on a throne or on a cloud. But but you're right. Like, why is it always a
why
disc
was
or a circle with like a beam coming down? Like, why isn't it a square? Why isn't it a rect? Like, why is
it not a flower?
right?
Why do we not point to like that tree? Like God's in that tree. You die and go to heaven, and you go inside that rock over there. It's always up, always up. I mean, you could say the stars and the night sky and things, possibly. I mean, we spend more time awake than asleep. But anyway, last thing, this is kind of a funny story. I give a shout out to a kid who I nicknamed Kwame. Got ripped off in the streets. I'm going to tell a story. All right, so we're in Florence, right? And there was a kid in our group that some vendors would not leave them alone. All right, so the vendor wanted, I think he wanted to sell him this poster, this like cheap replica of the Mona Lisa.
Right.
You said it was the real thing, or
no, he didn't say it was a real thing, but he just wanted like €5 for it. So the kid had like 20, and so he pulls out the 20 bill, thinking he's going to give him change. The vendor just like takes off running with his 20, and then he's got this poster. I felt bad for the kid, and I'm like, well, I'll give you €10 for it, which is like gives him back some of his money. And we made a deal, and that's it. So but then I had to carry this poster all around Florence, all around Rome for days and days and days. I almost left it in the airplane. That would have been horrible. But I've got this poster. It's my little trophy. So the point I want to make here is this. That's a fake Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa that this is, it's not, it's just a poster. It's a cheap imitation. The Mona Lisa that looks like is not even in Italy. It's in Paris. It's in the Louvre.
Right.
But where is the twin sister of the Mona Lisa? It's in Prado. the Prado Museum in Madrid, Spain. I saw that painting too. So it's like Leonardo da Vinci was an Italian artist. Yeah. Okay. So you might have lots of imitations, and I allude to the UFO community in general. We've got a lot of BS out there. We have more than that. I don't think it's intentional BS. I think it's like word of mouth BS, like the telephone game, where you've got lots of myths and stories and things that crop up and happen, and you think, oh no, I have a contact, I have a source, and they told me this and they told me that, so it must be true, and it is true. And then 5 people later, it's a totally different story. We have to get real about the things that are going on. We also have to be we need to be comfortable or expect that something we believe is going to be proven wrong. It will. I believe somewhere in all of this, I'll be proven wrong about some things too. And okay, if I'm wrong, then prove me wrong, but let's make progress, please. Like, we fight, we argue so much, we get our feelings hurt, we think we've got an inside connection or someone's doing misinformation for whatever reason, but we have to come together, continue to communicate, and get real with all of this information so we can make our planet better, you know?
No, I agree.
Nicely said.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely partly that, and I think also the
Mhm.
other aspect of it is the evolution of ideas and research. There's a lot of people that don't really do a ton of research or don't really look into things themselves, and maybe they
Mhm.
know a ton about this guy's work or this UFO journalist or this UFO, ufologist or whatever the fuck you want to say. But then they don't know like the physics, or they don't know. And not to say that there's not some other set of rules that we just haven't even discovered yet, but just that you gotta start doing your own research if you want. I guess that's where today, if you look online, there's just tons of people commenting on stuff that they really have no idea about. Not only have they not researched it, maybe they're right. Maybe their first glance over or the first perception of it is right. Maybe it is BS, but the
Mhm.
fact that they're willing to call that out and not actually look into it is just, it's lazy, number one. And number two, it's everywhere. Everybody's a skeptic. Everybody wants to shit on everybody. Everybody wants to comment and troll and whatever. Nobody actually does the research and the homework, So
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, we obviously appreciate your channel. So
Yeah, man.
you definitely look into all this stuff. So check out his YouTube channel, Tiller for Riller. He's got a lot of good stuff on there. Definitely check out Unidentified season 1.
Yeah.
Especially if you're new to the whole genre and research and stuff, there's a lot of good stuff in there. I think for people that are familiar with it, episodes 4, 5, and 6 were there was some new stuff in there. And hopefully, season 2 will have a bunch of new fruit to bear. But again, thanks for coming on, dude. I know you
Yeah.
aren't really feeling well, and hopefully you feel better. And if anything uh, develops here major in the next, couple months or whatever, we'll have you back on.
Definitely. I would love to do that. I always love talking with you guys. I wish you the best. Thanks for having me
Thank
on.
you, sir.
Yeah,
All
man.
right.
Have a good one, brother. Feel better.
You too.
Pe-
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Peace.
Have a good one. Peace.
Yeah.